we really need to have sex before we get married so we can see if we're sexually compatible. You sure that's not just an excuse to justify having sex? What? No. Of course not. Hey, this is Todd. Welcome to the Thrive Singles Podcast. Whether you're single again or still single, stop hating being single and learn to thrive. And welcome to this week's episode of the Thrive Singles Podcast. I'm so glad to be here with you. I feel like this episode is really important. While I was writing it, I really got kind of worked up, and you'll probably hear that in my voice today. But every time you mention sexual abstinence, people have a few favorite go-to phrases. But what about sexual compatibility? How do you know if you're sexually compatible if you don't have sex? That's one of the biggest objections to abstinence you'll hear. It's right up there with, but I have needs, and, well, everybody does it. And like other such sentiments, it's just another excuse for people to do what they want to do. Justification is an art most of us are pretty skilled at. And it's bad enough that this attitude is rampant in pop culture, but it's also infiltrated the church. I was shocked how many times I heard people express that attitude in our divorce care groups and in our Christian singles group. I even had a Christian woman I was communicating with via eHarmony say it to me directly. She outright told me there was no way she'd marry someone without giving them a test drive first and make sure they were sexually compatible. And she wasn't just some pew warmer, right? She was actively involved in her church. So I want to spend our time together this week dealing with this whole sexual compatibility thing. What is it with this culture that we've elevated sexual compatibility to this exalted place? And what does that even mean? Is it a matter of having compatible equipment? I mean, more likely than not, you can check that box off without ever test driving, right? If you're both human, there's a pretty good chance your pieces will fit together in some pleasurable way. While there are some variances in size, and some people have a preference one way or the other, but unless you and your spouse are totally opposite ends of the spectrum, you should be okay on that front. Even if you're a size mismatch, it's not the end of the world or even the end of sexual fulfillment. There are ways of dealing with that. All that being said, if size does matter to you, you should definitely have that conversation with anyone you're seriously interested in. Or is it a matter of sexual preferences? Is sexual compatibility a matter of liking the same positions or the same duration or the same frequency? And to be sure, those things are important, but A, are they what make sex great? And B, are they something that require a test drive to figure out? Like I said about size, if you have some peculiar sexual proclivity, you need to talk about it with anyone you start getting serious about. Whether it's a size concern or a taboo sexual desire, any prospective mate needs to know about your sexual desires and expectations. Talking about those things is part of growing together as a couple. It's important to marry someone with whom you can engage in serious conversation about any important topic. Talking through difficult subjects leads to greater understanding and greater intimacy. This is what makes sex great: intimacy. Feeling connected to someone enough to commit to them for life. We've gotten our priorities completely backward. We glorify sex as the be-all and end-all of the human experience. What about honor, self-control, or delayed gratification? What about knowing and being known, unconditional love, commitment? Those are things that are dismissed as pie in the sky, old-fashioned, impractical, or impossible. We seek after sexual fulfillment and sexual compatibility Meanwhile, the things that actually matter and make a marriage great, like intimacy, commitment, and mutual respect, those get neglected. We ignore the most important things and put our sexual cart before our relational horse. We let the sexual compatibility tail wag the intimate relationship dog. Good sex is absolutely an important part of marriage. But you can't base a relationship on sex, no matter how good the sex is. Sexual spark tends to wax and wane. Good sex does not lead to a great or long-lasting relationship. But the opposite is true. Developing a great relationship and sealing it with a marital commitment can lead to awesome sex. And if the sexual spark misfires for a season, a strong relationship will get you through that dry spell and help bring the spark back. So what actually needs the work and the test drive, sex or your relationship? If two people have a desire to serve each other sexually and have sexual desire for each other, what can possibly make them sexually incompatible? If two people genuinely love each other and otherwise have a solid relationship, the sexual part of the relationship can be worked out. And when I talk about love, I mean loving each other as in seeking what is best for each other, not love as a mere attraction. Sexual attraction and feelings of being in love, those come and go. Love is a decision. Love is a verb. Somehow we have let pop culture redefine it as something either soft and cuddly and schmaltzy, or something dirty and perverted and 50 shades of selfish. Real love takes commitment and sacrifice, two concepts that are foreign to this modern notion of brave new sexuality. To me, sexual issues are something that need to be talked about with anyone you might consider a potential spouse. And no, I'm not saying that on a first or second date you start a discussion about sexual positions or penis size. That would be creepy. What I am saying is that there comes a point in a relationship where a certain amount of trust has been established, and you start to wonder, is that person someone I could see myself married to? At that point, you should start to discuss a broad range of subjects, including money, children, life goals, and yes, sex. That will do a lot more toward seeing if you're sexually compatible than having sex ever could. A good relationship is not the product of great sex, but a great marriage includes and leads to great sex. Sexual compatibility does not mean you're compatible as a couple, but being compatible as a couple has a high probability of ensuring that you will be sexually compatible. So, till next time, don't waste your time worrying about sexual compatibility. Two people who know how to love each other can figure that part out. Instead, spend your time learning what it takes to create a great marriage. In a great marriage, there will be great sex. See you next week. Till then, thrive on. I hope you enjoyed this week's podcast. See you next week. Till then, be sure to subscribe and go check out my extensive archive of past posts at thrivesingles.com. And thrive on.
Whoa, thrive. Yeah, come alive. There's more to life. You gotta grow, you gotta thrive. Whoa, whoa, you gotta thrive. There's more to life than to just survive.